welcome to the annual town meeting. We're going to be starting our pre-town meeting ceremony right about now. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, we'll be conducting a modified pre-town meeting ceremony. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, right. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now please stay standing for the Star-Spangled Banner. Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence for all the town officials, town employees, and town honorees that we've lost since the last time we've met. Charles A. Pickering, former selectman. Janet E. Galash, poll worker. Richard H. McMahon, Memorial and Veterans Day Committee. Gerald A. Bean, former school custodian. And for all of those affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. I would now like to invite Police Chief Flaherty to the stage to present the Victor R. Flaherty Senior Civic Award.
Thank you, everybody. This award was created now 10 years ago in remembrance of my father, Victor Flaherty Sr. Victor Sr. gave countless hours and time and extremely committed to this community for more than 50 years. My father thought we should all do what we can to make the community stronger. He thought you should assist your community in any way that you can. My father loved serving and volunteering his time. And this year's recipient truly also loves this community and volunteering his time. I believe what makes this year's recipient a little bit more special is he was the person who requested and pushed for the creation of the award named after my father. Without his thoughtful and passionate belief in creating such an award, we wouldn't have the opportunity tonight to recognize this person along with all our past deserving recipients of the Vic Flaherty Senior Civic Award. Tonight, I am honored to recognize Eldon Marrera as the 2021 recipient of the Victor R. Flaherty Senior Award. When I first spoke to Eldon and informed him of the award, he continued just to talk about my dad, his commitment to his community. Eldon, like my father, has also committed himself to this community, as we all know. A lifelong resident, a member of the Finance Committee 1973 to 1981. a member of the Board of Selectmen for 38 years, a member of the Old Colony Planning Council up to even today for over 40 years, a member of countless boards, committees, commissions, which gave West Bridgewater and its residents a voice on the local, county, and state level. This is an individual that loves his community, giving his time, serving the community for almost 50 years. This is what this award is all about, individuals who just want to serve. So again, tonight I'm honored to present the 2021 Victor R. Flaherty Civic Award to Eldon Marrera.
Thank you very much for this award. This is one of the highest awards that this town gives out every year. And last week when Vic wanted to talk to me, to drop in, and when I got to his office and he said that I was this year's recipient of this award. And I was kind of lost for words because I know all the years that I've put in here, and he asked me, you know, some of the things that I've done, and I don't think he had enough all day if I started listening to things. But sometimes I kind of reminisce a little bit there and look back at Vic, and like I said, I want to thank everybody for this award because this award, like I was saying, is one of the highest awards that, and this is given every year. I just wanted to sometimes take a little time to pause. If Vic was there with us now, what this town would really look like. I'm very, very proud of this town and the way this town is run. This town is probably one of the best-run towns in Massachusetts, and I'm very proud to be part of it. Thank you again for this award, and I hope we have a great town meeting tonight.
Thank you and congratulations. So we are now going to move into I'm going to call this meeting to order at 5:56. And we're going to start with Articles 1 and 2, which are consent articles. Selectman Kinahan? We're going to read the warrant first.
To either of the constables of West Bridgewater in the county of Plymouth, greeting. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of West Bridgewater, qualified to vote in elections and town affairs, to meet at the West Bridgewater Middle Senior High School in said town on May 17, 2021 at 6 p.m., and then there to act on the following articles to wit. Pursuant to within the warrant, I have this day notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of West Bridgewater, qualified to vote in elections and town affairs, to meet at the time and place within mentioned by posting 15 attested copies of within warrant at various locations throughout Precinct 1 and 2, 7 days at least before the time of holding before said annual town meeting. Bruce L. Holmquist, Constable of West Bridgewater.
Now we're going to move into Articles 1 and 2, which are consent articles.
Right.
Selectman Kinahan.
I move that the town consider and approve Articles 1 and 2 as printed on the warrant as single consent articles.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended by the Finance Committee 7-0.
Thank you. Board of Selectmen,
Board of Selectmen recommends.
would you like to speak to the motion?
I do not.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 3, Selectman Kinahan. Oh, wait, what? Oh, sorry, Selectman Anderson.
Thank you. I move that the town vote to determine the salaries of the following elected town officers for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021. Moderator, $338. Board of Selectmen, $10,375. Town clerk, $75,086. Board of Health, $4,936. Board of Assessors, $10,539. Water Commissioners, $7,295. The following officers are to serve without pay. Excuse me, library trustees, planning board, school committee, and the tree warden.
Thank you. Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended by the Finance Committee, 7-0.
Board of Selectmen? Would
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
you like to speak to the motion?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor?
Jason, there's someone standing up.
Can you come to the microphone, please? Gotta turn it on.
Deborah Idell, 183 North Elm Street. I just wondered if it could be justified why our Board of Selectmen budget is over $10,000 for salaries when other towns pay their selectmen about $1,500 apiece.
I can't answer that question really. Since I've been on the board, this number hasn't changed. I wasn't there when it was first voted on. I don't know. It's about $3,000 each for the three of us.
I'd also like to wonder why the town clerk will be getting more than a 2% increase.
The town clerk is budgeted at a 2% raise.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it. Article 4. Janice Fox.
Move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $37,065,742 for the maintenance and support of the several departments of the town and other usual or necessary town charges as herein specified and requested by the Finance Committee for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, for the purposes herein described, and further that the sum of $34,212,525 be raised and appropriated, and the sum of $2,853,217 be transferred as follows. From estimated water revenues, $2,103,217. From emergency medical services receipts, $400,000. From the free cash to offset debt exclusion borrowing costs for the new middle senior high school, $350,000, totaling $2,853,217.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right. So this is your town budget. So it's in this book right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read down every single line number, listing the line number, the department, and how much it is. If you want to discuss any of these line items, yell hold, and after I'm done going through them all, we're going to go up to the microphone over here, and we're going to go down each one in a row. Okay? So Moderator, 1140, it's at 588. All right. Board of Selectmen, 1220, it's at $354,907. Finance Committee, 1310, it's at $3,100. The Reserve Fund, 1320, and it's at $67,000. The Town Accountant, 1350, it's at $111,904. Assessors, 1410, $239,652. Was that a hold? No? That's reading too fast. Okay. Well, I'll slow down a little bit. Was that a hold? Okay, that was a little whiles back. Going forward, you have to yell it out right away, okay? So we're going to go back. Assessors, 1410, $239,652. Treasurer Collector, 1450. That's at $322,175. All right. Town Council, 1510. That's at 87,000. Oh, that's 1510 at $87,000. Okay. Information Systems, 1550 at $95,720. Cable TV Committee, 1560. That's at $1,100. Town Clerk, 1610. It's at $137,119. Elections Registration, 1630. That's at $25,116. Conservation, 1710. You're looking at $108,894. Open Space Committee, 1715. You're looking at $950. Agricultural Commission, that's 1720 at $600. Planning Board, 1750, $26,119. Board of Appeals, 1760, $5,901. Rent Control Board, 1850. That's at $4,399. ADA Compliance Committee, 1920. That's at $500. Insurances, 1930. $270,865. Town Hall, 1940. $67,025. Municipal Building Needs Committee, 1945, $1,486. Wastewater Treatment Facilities, 1950, $14,800. Police Department, 2100. It's at $235,000. I'll repeat that, $3,054,235. Fire Department, 2200. That is $2,407,691. Building, 2410. That's at $174,488. Inspector of Gas and Plumbing. I read it. Oh, sorry. I read the figure wrong on building inspector. The total is $172,488. Inspector of Gas and Plumbing, 2420. That's $20,515. Sealer of Weights and Measures, 2440. That's at $6,075. Inspector of Wires, 2450, and that's at $20,715. Canine Control, 2920, $8,250. Education, $3,000. So that's $14,209,684. Southeastern Regional VOTEC Schools, $3,200. That's at $594,659. Public Works, $4215. That's at $1,157,621. PW Snow Removal, $4230, $91,300. PW Street Lighting, $4240. That's $95,700. Waste Disposal Sanitation, $4330, and it's at $326,213. Tree Warden, $4940. It's $400. Board of Health, $5110, $177,923. A New Day Women's Place Crisis Center, $5260. It's at $2,750. Brockton Area Arc, $5270. That's at $250. Old Colony Hospice, $5280, $2,000. Council on Aging, $5410. That's at $314,500. Veterans, $5430. That's at $65,043. Library, $6,100. $479,205. Plymouth County Extension Service, $6,600. It's at $200. Historic Commission, $6,910, $1,750. Veterans and Memorial Day, $6,920, $1,700. Retirement of Debt, $7,100. $1,926,547. Interest on long-term debt, $7510. $1,012,649. Interest on short-term loans, $7520. $50,000. Benefits, $9,100. $6,815,542. Water, $4,500. And that comes at $2,103,217 for a grand total of $37,065,742. So we're going to start from the very beginning now. And the first hold is on the Board of Selectmen, and I just want to remind everyone we're in the middle of a pandemic, so if people have already said things, please don't repeat because we want to be out here as safely as possible. Board of Selectmen.
Deborah Idell, 183 North Elm Street. So I'm looking at the appointed official salaries. I see that the first one for $149,910 went up by 3.5%. The second for appointed officials went up for a total of 7%. I was wondering if that could be justified. Also, in addition to that, there's a new cost for tuition reimbursement. Vehicle repairs went up significantly to $2,000. I was wondering if that could be spoken to. Advertising, we seem to have a new advertising budget for $2,000 from $233. Office supplies went up to $2,300 from $1,125. Dues and meetings, which is in every part of the budget, which I don't really understand what that is, but that went up significantly to $5,000. Training went up significantly, and equipment replacement went up significantly. So it seems that the Board of Selectmen's entire budget went up by a total of 12%. I was wondering if these increases could maybe be discussed.
Well, that's entirely inaccurate for what we're voting on today. That may have been accurate for last year's town meeting, but this year we are voting on a reduction of almost $1,000 in this budget.
I have listed here that your actual budget for fiscal year 2020 was $317,045, and now you're at $354,907. Is there a misprint?
Well, that's 2 years different. So in 2020, that's accurate. We were at 317. It went up to 355 in 2021, the current year. And next year, what we're voting on today is going down by about $800.
Okay, so such an increase in 2 years, I'd still like you to be able to speak to the increases and why, please.
I mean, the appointed officials went up the same as basically most of the town, went up somewhere in the vicinity of 3%, somewhere about 2%. There was a change in the office in one of the appointed officials. We added a individual who became our HR director. We changed that position, we changed the role. So that is part of the increase for line 5112. I mean, the other lines are fairly small when you talk about advertising, tuition reimbursement. They're pretty small. We have to advertise when we have public hearings. We have to put them in the newspaper. We are required by law to advertise. And I mean, office supplies, it's still pretty minimal.
Could I also mention that first line that you're talking about, or that first column, those are actual expenses for the year ended, June 30th, 2020. And then the next column is the budget that was approved last year. And then the third column, the column in the middle, that's what their request is for this year. So I know the fiscal year versus calendar year gets confusing. What we're talking about today is fiscal year 22.
Neil Conley, 376 Walnut Street. Real quick, again, appointed officials, 5111. Is that Dave Gagney, or is that the two secretaries in his office?
That's the town administrator.
The town administrator. I don't know why I don't say town administrator. Apparently, he didn't take a raise this time around.
That's correct. Going into '22, there was no increase.
Also, that's his gross salary, correct?
Oh, sorry, what was that, Neil?
That's his gross salary?
Yes.
What is his benefits above and beyond this gross salary?
There is, same as, I mean, there's health care.
All right, can we be more specific? Does he get a car?
He does not, no.
Does he
There's
have
no
a
car,
chauffeur?
there's no other stipends, there's no other monetary compensation. There's only health insurance, dental insurance, medical benefits.
Right, that's fine, thank you. And second of all, the two appointed officials, I assume the two secretaries.
Assistant Town Administrator / HR Director and Confidential Secretary.
And so he has two secretaries. I know he has two, you might have one and he does, but it don't break down what their salaries are. So can you break down what the two salaries are for the two secretaries?
I don't have that with us.
Well, if not, can I go through the chair and ask Scott? Scott, can you give us the salaries of the two secretaries that work for the selectman or the town administrator?
I don't have it immediately with me.
Dave, do you have it?
Sure, it'd be about 85,000 and 50,000.
So who's getting 85,000?
The assistant town administrator / HR director.
So she's the one, I'm going to assume it's a she, and I am not being disrespectful. She's from East Bridgewater, correct?
She is not.
Well, is she from the town, or? It makes
I
a
don't know
big
what the
difference.
story-
That's not relevant to,
Huh?
that's not relevant to this.
All right,
discussion.
so how come it's such a big, one gets so much and the other one gets so less?
Yeah. They're different positions. I mean, that's, in any industry, where are there not differences in salaries in different positions?
Well, I don't think you'd be doing too much different in a small office, one's doing more than the other. Because they should be getting this. Just because you give a person a title doesn't mean you give them that kind of a pay raise over the one that's been there a lot longer than the one that came in late.
Jamie Pope, 140 Scotland Street. Point of clarification request. Line 5192, can you explain what that $3,000 tuition reimbursement goes to specifically? And second point of clarification, can you explain to us how that is different from line 5,784 training, which is 2,270? Thank you.
So I've been here for 8 years. We've always carried $3,000 in our budget for training. That has never changed. That allows people to be able to get courses, Bridgewater State University, or any other universities. But it's for anything that you would see for formal education. And I continue to carry that in the budget because I have two very intelligent, great workers. And if they want to be able to receive self-development, we should allow that and applaud for it. Obviously, 2020 was the end of COVID. Not a lot of courses were being offered, but I can tell you that line has been used in the past. The other one that you referred to, which is for training, or for training, that is for courses such as for Maya, which is a state organization. It is chiefly used by the Board of Selectmen. It is not chiefly used by employees, and that is for whenever they need to take classes, especially when you have new selectmen and newer selectmen. They should have the ability to be able to take courses and understand the roles that they are in and also how municipal government works.
I have a question on Mr. Gagne's contract.
Can you please state your name and address?
Yeah, Richard Kruger, 259 Spring Street. In his contract that no other employee has in their contract, that if they don't use vacation time or any time, any compensation time that they've worked at meetings and stuff, they can sell those back to the town. I was wondering how much did Mr. Gagne sell back to the town as unused vacation time? Because other employees either have to request a carryover of any leftover time or give it up. And I know in Mr. Gagne's case, he gets to sell it. And I was wondering, how much money did he collect over and above his regular pay selling back time?
Last year, I sold back 10 days or 2 weeks.
You sold back what?
10 days or 2 weeks. 2 weeks vacation. The truth of the matter is,
10
I don't
days
get to
and
use
2
all my
weeks?
vacation.
10 days and 2 weeks, or 10 days is 2 weeks?
10 days is 2 weeks.
Okay, so does that show up in your pay, or is that over and above?
That is over and above.
So where does that money come from if your line item doesn't cover it?
The same way it does from anybody else who sells back either their sick time at the end of retirement, or if they sell vacation back during the year. There is my contract and 1 or 2 other ones that allow it. It comes out of 9,100 benefits. There is a line that says vacation sick time buyback.
Why do you get it and nobody else gets it? I don't understand that. There's a lot of department heads in our town, and you seem to be the only one that gets it.
So my contract is almost identical to my predecessor, and I can tell you that it's pretty standard in the industry. Truth of the matter is, we don't get to take all our vacation time.
Almost, but that wasn't in the predecessor's contract. There was nothing like that. You were the first one to ever get it.
Any further discussion on Board of Selectmen? Okay, moving on to Finance Committee. Any discussion on that?
Jason, I'm a little late. Could I speak to the selectmen's budget? Specifically, Mr. Gagne's salary? Or am I too late?
Real quick. We have someone up at the microphone, so just
Okay.
be real quick.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So there's an old adage, you get what you pay for. And I originally, several years ago, stood up at a town meeting and disputed Mr. Gagne's salary. Thought he was being paid way too high. Subsequently, I compared his salary to other like towns, and typically I'll look at Avon because it's similar in size, has the corridor to Route 24, so it is similar to us. So I do sometimes use Avon as my comparison. What I found is that after the raise was given to the town administrator, we were paying, I think, close to or less than their town administrator. I also walked into this position planning to experience Mr. Gagne, because I don't believe you just meet someone and automatically assume they're very good at the job. They need to prove themselves. Subsequently, over the past 4 years, I would say he's more than proven himself, and I do trust his judgment. I think he's given this town an A effort, and he's been challenged by me at times and others, and I think he does a very good job for you and for us. Do we pay him quite a handsome salary? I would say yes. Do I think he's being overpaid? No.
Okay. Moving on to Finance Committee.
Jamie Pope, 140 Scotland Street. Point of clarification, line 5,730. This comes up quite often in other budgets. Could someone just explain what dues and meetings means for us, please? Thank you.
So many of the budgets have money in them for people to attend. Is it not on?
You have to talk into it.
Oh, sorry. Similar to many of the budgets, they have money set aside for dues and meetings so that we can stay up to date with all of the different changes and regulations and the administrative things related to town government. So any member of the committee can go to any of those meetings that they'd like to do.
Any further discussion? Okay, we're going to move on to the treasurer-collector. Any discussion on that? Okay. We're going to move on to town council.
Neil Conley, 376 Walnut Street. His salary is $85,000. I don't have it in front of me, but I just seen it. But Mike, does he $85,000? Does he work for $85,000, or is that just a stipend they give him just to have $85,000? And even if he don't use it up, he still gets it. Just curious.
Town council is a per diem, so therefore he receives zero unless he's used. He doesn't receive $1 unless we're billed for it.
All right. If I'm in order, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to ask: is he representing us in any lawsuits pending against the town in the past fiscal year? Or have we made any settlements through the courts? Because I assume he'd be the lawyer we'd use if we were to. And are we in any arbitration cases that are pending?
We are in no arbitration cases at this point. He has certainly represented us mostly before the appellate tax board, which is when somebody files for an abatement on their taxes. We have not, my recollection, been involved in any other court proceedings over the past year, or are we currently, that I can think of.
All righty, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we're going to move on to town clerk.
Jamie Pope, 140 Scotland Street. 2 points of clarification. Line 5191, career incentive for certification. Point 2, line 5731, point of clarification, annual school. Could you please explain the purposes of those two line items?
Yeah, let me just open up to my page. So the first one, I took a test. I went to school, I went to class, I took an extensive test. I passed that test, and by Massachusetts state law, I am now a certified Massachusetts municipal clerk, and I am allowed to receive that $1,000 every year for taking that class and for keeping up my accreditations, because I have to renew that every few years. The second one is schooling. If we go to school so that I can get my accreditations and keep up to date with all the newest things, new election laws, et cetera, that money is there and available. Obviously didn't use it last year due to COVID, but it's there, and I have used it in the past, and my assistant has also used it.
Any further discussion on town clerk? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to elections and registration. Hearing no discussion, going to move on to town hall. Any discussion on town hall? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to building inspector. Any discussion on building inspector? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to education.
William Flynn, 42 Brooks Place, excuse me, member of the school committee. Mr. Moderator, I move that $222,000 be transferred from the town stabilization account to budget 3,000 education line 3,230 for teaching services, to increase the education budget for the school to $14,431,684.
Is there a second? Second. Can you please present the...
Mr. Moderator, I move to amend the motion on the floor to transfer $458,000 from the town stabilization account, $222,000 to budget 3,000 education line 3230 teaching services for a total education budget of $14,431,684, and $236,000 to budget 9100 benefits, line 5119, other salaries, for a total benefits budget of $7,051,542.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. Would you like to discuss it, or any discussion on this motion? Please come to the right microphone. That's for the presenters. I'm sorry. They will be shortly.
Jack Hughes, 640 North Elm Street. So I got lost here, Mr. Moderator. There were two, are we amending what's in this paper?
That is correct. There is an amendment from the floor, and it has been further amended. So we are voting on what Anthony presented.
So what happened to the First Amendment? It was seconded, so is that still out there?
So it was seconded, and then that was there, and Anthony amended it.
Amended the Second Amendment or the
Correct.
First Amendment? So I thought we had a vote, and I thought we had to have amendments in writing. I've been to town meeting for a long time, and none of this stuff seemed to be following what we've done in the past for making amendments. And the real question I got up for is, what fiscal year is the money coming out of, stabilization, and where is the money going to, 2022?
So it was submitted in writing beforehand. We gave it to Jason beforehand. But it's coming out of stabilization, which has been accrued over a number of years. I think for the past, we started with a balance of close to zero about 8 years ago, and we're now at about $3.1 million in the stabilization account. So that's where it would be coming from.
So Anthony, is that 3.1 million after 2020 or 2021 is over?
Yes.
So at 2021 will be over. We'll have 3.1 million. You want to use 450,000 to pay something in 2022 for teacher salaries, right?
That is correct.
Okay, I got it. But I don't know if we voted on it right.
Can I make a correction to that? You said just for teacher salaries. I believe the amendment is so all town employees get a raise, not just teacher salaries.
Jamie Pope, 140 Scotland Street. Are we still in the discussion portion? Mr. Moderator?
Yes, can you repeat that?
Okay. Can you explain why, well, first I have a couple of points of information. Currently, our current balance in the stabilization fund is 3.1. Is that what you said?
That's correct, about 3.1.
What is our current balance, Department of Revenue certified, of free cash?
It's about $1 million before we spend it tonight, but we'll have a number of...
So it's $1 million right now because we haven't voted to approve anything coming from free cash, correct?
That's correct. Right at this moment, it's about $1 million.
So since you amended the first amendment, am I allowed to amend his amendment? Because you're kind of getting me confused. Or can I make a separate amendment?
So how it works is, let's say Anthony's amendment fails. Then we move on to the original amendment that Mr. Flynn filed. Now, you can provide an amendment to Anthony's amendment, but it has to be in writing, and you have to bring it up here.
Okay.
We have a form that the town clerk can help you with, if you like. It can come before the meeting.
So,
It can come. And please, if you want to talk, please come to the microphone.
On a point of information, all I'm saying, we have a PowerPoint here. You're throwing all these figures out here. They should be up there on the PowerPoint, the amendments. You can screen them up there so you can read them. They're going to vote on something. Some of the members, people here, are voting on this regardless because a lot of people don't understand it. Those amendments, when you make an amendment, They present it, then it goes to a vote. If someone makes another amendment, you table the first amendment and you go to the second amendment.
That's not
Don't
how it
tell me,
works.
I know.
I'm sorry, but I have another point of clarification now. I thought this was budget line for the school budget, 3,100. So I'm a little confused on why the amendment is convoluting the two revenue streams. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? He made an amendment to that motion, but 200 and something thousand of that brings it up to 400,000 is outside of the education budget. The reason why I ask is because I have an amendment that I would like to make specific to the education budget, and in the laws of order, if my amendment is bigger, it is to be reviewed first and voted on first for the largest amount.
So unless if you amend this current amendment, you have to present, yeah, you have to present another amendment.
So do I have a form for the other amendment? I mean,
We do
because
have a form.
You're convoluting the revenue streams.
We do have a form up here that the town clerk can help you with for amendments. You can come up.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, Peter Turner, 390 Forest Street. Mr. Moderator, could you please request a clarification from Town Council? Specifically, we have a motion on the floor for the original amount, which was then amended and seconded, so we cannot put another amendment on the floor until the first one is dispensed with. Otherwise, right now, we have three things on the floor active. We need to, in my understanding, we need to dispense with the first number, either yea or nay. Then it would get amended maybe by the Board of Selectmen, yea or nay. Then this woman's would then also be offered up, yea or nay. So please get a clarification from Town Council, because I think we need to get that sorted out. Thank you.
The original school department budget line was motioned by Mr. Flynn, I think his name is, Mr. Flynn, to add $220-some thousand, I don't hold me to the figure, to that budget item by moving that money from the stabilization fund. That motion would carry, if it needs a two-thirds vote to carry. The amendment to that motion, which was filed in writing prior to the meeting, seeks not only to have the 220+ thousand, but to add to that an additional amount so that the budget in the school department would be increased by the amount in the first motion, but the budget for the overall town would be increased by the further amount, also all the money coming from stabilization. So if you vote in favor of the amended motion, then there's no need to vote anything further because it doesn't affect the original motion. It simply adds money to it to be used for the town employees, not the school department. And that is what you would vote for. If you vote down the amended motion, then you still have to vote on the original motion for $220,000 for the school department budget. So if you voted in favor of, this amended motion, that would be the only vote you need to take on that issue. I don't know exactly what you want to do, so I didn't.
Well, Mr. Moderator, if I may say, the initial motion was for a budget of whatever the total is for this whole blessed thing that the moderator read. That was the initial motion. So anything beyond that is an amendment to that motion. Maybe you just misspoke and called that the $200,000 a motion. That was an amendment. The original motion was $14,209,684.
That is correct.
And anything beyond that's an amendment, which means we now have two amendments on the floor, which I don't think we're allowed to do. Thank you.
Sir, there's no motion on the floor for just the school department. The only motion that would be made after all the holes have been discussed is the bottom line budget number. That's why the first motion is simply an amendment to the school department budget. The second motion, which is amending the first one, is an amendment to the school department budget and the other budget. If that's approved, then the second vote would be to adopt the budget as amended, and therefore you don't need to vote on it first, because there is no motion just to adopt the school budget. Yes, we should read that second amendment to them. Who's got it? I don't have it.
It was the benefits budget, which is budget 9100, line 5119, other salaries, sorry.
Hey, Art Cabral, 77 Walnut Street, also one of the water commissioners. Mrs. Anderson had said that Mr. Kinahan's amendment was to give the rest of the town employees the money they would have gotten in the raise if they hadn't accepted the zero. I want clarification if you're going to take stabilization fund money and put it into the water department salaries, because all of our employees took a zero for this year.
Yep, it's
just like everybody else did. And this is the first we're hearing about what happened last Friday night.
Yeah, so water department would be included with that, along with assessors,
Okay, it does, okay. That was I just wanted to make sure.
Rick Kruger, 259 Spring Street. It was always my understanding that once we made a budget and it was advertised that money articles could, on town meeting floor, could go down, but they could never go up, from what the townspeople were told in the advertisement before the town meeting. Has that changed? Because now we're asking for more money. People who read the advertised amounts is different than what they read at home. They may not have come, but if they had known it was going to be larger. I'm not opposed to the raise, but I was always told what we're doing here is illegal. Is it or isn't it?
No, sir, it's not illegal. The budget items, just like any other motion, article rather, that's on the town warrant, is to advise the public of the general nature of the warrant article. The general nature of the warrant article in this case is a budget for each department in the town. And that budget number is listed as the budget that's being proposed. There is nothing in anything that prevents this town meeting, like any other town meeting, to vote any amount of money they want, up or down, as long as it's within the scope of the budget. They can't come up with some new department that doesn't exist and try to fund that, no. But as long as it's an item that's in the budget, they can move it up or down.
Wow, that's a change.
David Church, 91 South Elm. I'm the chairman of the library trustees. Going back to what Mr. Cabral said about the raises, does that mean the library staff will get raises also?
All town employees, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, I'm just going to add, I had a department head meeting earlier in which all department heads were included, library, water, everybody else, so all the departments had been notified.
Denise Reyes, 48 Columbus Avenue. I am a selectman, but I cannot speak as a selectman to the school budget because my daughter works as a teacher's aide. So I can only speak to the school budget in its entirety, but I do think it's important for everyone to understand how we got here today, because it is very confusing. We walk into town meeting, we expect budgets to be presented at a certain number, and there's always some back and forth a little bit, looking for some wiggle room, but this is a lot of money. So it started out about a year ago, conversations with the school department, as well as every other, I'm sorry, let me back up a minute. Conversations with departments about taking a zero because of how terrible COVID has been. There are many residents of this town that were financially affected one way or the other, whether it was because they could no longer work because their job either didn't exist or was being challenged by COVID, or they unexpectedly lost family members due to COVID. They couldn't work for one reason or another. So it was believed that it would be a good idea to try to work on 0% increases, and hopefully all of the town employees would agree. The expectation a year ago was that it could happen for the residents of West Bridgewater and try to reduce some of the tax impact on everyone. We believed everyone would accept it. Actually all of the department heads and all of the unions accepted it, with the exception of the teachers. And that is not a derogatory comment on the teachers in any way. They have every right to negotiate, to insist on what they want. Subsequently, this is how we got here today. It was our belief that a motion would be made on the floor to increase the teachers' salary line. That would not be fair to the other town employees who agreed to take a 0. So a meeting was held. It was agreed that a motion would be made to increase the budget overall so that all town employees got their increase. Now, this is the COLA increase that we're speaking of. All stipends, let me take that back. All track and step increases that were already part of the school budget were not touched. Those increases remained intact. This is the additional 2% COLA. And it's the raise that would be, or the increase in salary that would be given to everyone in town, all town employees, including the schools. It comes out of the stabilization fund. That's a fund that has been built over the past 8 years of your money and my money, taxpayer money. That's how it got to that amount. There's about $3.1 million. The motion is to take out, I'll call it $500,000 to use for this purpose. So the town isn't split and everyone gets their increase. Now, what you should know that I just learned about this stabilization fund is I always thought this stabilization fund, well, let me put it this way, the water department. The water department acts autonomous. That was my belief. Money could go into the water department, okay, and money could go out of the water department only for water department purposes. What I've learned is that actually town money, town revenue, can go into the water department. Now, this is new because I always believed it was autonomous. We have a lot of water problems in this town. I can't think of a better reason to use stabilization fund in the future than to help out this town's water issues. I know I digressed a little bit, but I know we all have these issues, and I think it's an educational moment for what your stabilization fund, your savings should be used for. Thank you.
Hi, Rebecca De Oliveira, 271 South Main Street. Sorry, I haven't really been to one of these before, but when I've heard so much about it being for our kids and what's going to be cut from them and how impactful it is, I have 3 kids of my own, one going in, a 1st grader and a 7th grader, so I know how important it is for us, and I know how hard it's been for our teachers and the staff here in all of the schools and how much they've put for us. So I feel a little like sideswiped a bit when I came here. Like, I was always told that this was for the school committee, for our teachers, and to help the, and not that I don't think a raise needs to be for everybody. I think I deserve a raise too. I think we all do. It's been a very stressful year. It's just been hard, I think, when most of us as parents come here in the hopes for our students to get that. And I feel like, yes, you're saying that a motion's been granted, but I feel like I'm just learning of this at the committee, and I feel like I've been following this pretty informed. And I would just hate to see people vote against it and our kids fail because of something that was just put in last minute. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gina Larissa Shea.
I am the proud parent of 3 students that went through, one that's already graduated from West Bridgewater Public Schools, and 2 more children in the high school and the middle school. I am also a teacher in the school. I was an assistant teacher last year, but because of COVID, we did not have enough people to cover for remote students. So I stepped up, as did many, many, many teachers and teachers' assistants in our school system. I want to clarify 3 things. Number 1, there is misinformation going out. There was never at any time a vote, an offer, an open conversation for the teachers to reopen their contract and take a 0. So our contract was already set. We were not approached. That was not we did not vote down a 0 because that vote never took place. So that is complete misinformation. Also, I'd like to clarify the term CODA. That is a cost of COLA, a cost of living increase. So when you talk about a teacher's salary, you're not talking about a raise that was in our contract. You're talking about a cost of living increase. And what that means is maybe 2%, which does not, by the way, even keep pace with inflation, the rate of inflation that is usually over 3%. Now, I've heard a lot of raises being spoken about here tonight. I just want to make sure that people understand what they're saying when they say COLA, a cost of living increase, so that by a teacher taking a cost of living increase to next year or the year after, which that means is they're not going to be making less money in order to keep with the rate of inflation or not even. So if you don't pass that, what you're doing is saying the teachers, after everything that they did, and I can speak as a parent because I know my own family suffered as a result of myself working more hours. And my students, my children would not be where they are if it wasn't for the teachers of West Bridgewater that helped and supported them through a difficult time of remote learning in our home, when my husband and myself could not be there to support their learning because we were working as teachers supporting the students in West Bridgewater and the town that my husband works in. So when we speak about these terms, let's be careful and know what we're talking about and understand. Thank you.
Jamie Pope, 140 Scotland Street. Taxpayer, parent of 3 children in the school system, teacher in your district. Speaking as a taxpayer and a parent, I'm obviously very upset at the disingenuous information and the format of that information presented in previous meetings as well as this town meeting. As we listened to previous comments, it was stated that the educators were the only department that refused to take a 0. Why is this disingenuous? It is because the educators were the only department that already had an approved, effective contract for next year. Other town departments were in the midst of contract negotiations, and that COLA raise is part of their negotiating process. In order to get our COLA raises, we had to engage in good faith bargaining, which meant that we had to give concessions to get our cost of living increase. It is also a perception that when comments are made about taxpayers having adverse effects from COVID, that your educators and other town employees are also taxpayers in this town. And as was mentioned previously from someone much more intelligent than me, is that COVID, we were all in the same storm, but not all in the same boat. So those same things that you talked about earlier affected your town employees as well. I also took offense at the term not fair and parity for all other town employees. You have many town employees that have worked here for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, and your school department took a 0 15 years ago and no other town department did. When COVID hit, we were told that we have not always been team players. When COVID hit, the educators did not request bargaining for the massive change in working conditions. Instead, we pivoted with 48 hours of notice. I still disagree with the decision about conflating the two. I would like to submit an amendment, a motion for $225,000 to be moved to the school budget, line 3,000, or account 3,000, with funds to be moved from free cash, which requires a majority vote only, instead of the stabilization fund.
So this vote has to be taken first, before that.
Hi, Cynthia McGuigan, 59 Prospect Street. I'm a resident of this town since I was age 14, was lucky enough to be nominated to the Finance Committee. I came in as a foster child back then and thought it was my turn to give back. I voted down on the school budget on the Finance Committee because I saw that the police department and the fire department chose not to take a raise this year. And for my opinion, they risked their lives. And I thought that was very commendable for them to do this for this town. So based on that, there's also other information. So I don't know if everybody knew this, because I learned something new being on the Finance Committee. It's a bottom line budget. Money is presented in your budget, and the school has the opportunity to use that money any way they feel fit, although they put it in this. I find some concerning items, and I did email Mark Bodwell, but unfortunately I was unavailable to touch base with him. But the electric bill has significantly decreased. While we all think that's great, there's a concern of why it decreased by $30,000. And why are we not questioning that? And why is it's great if it all decreases, but why? And there was other questions that were brought up on the meeting. So I will be following up with Mark, but I think we need to investigate some of these numbers a little bit more hardcore. And I'm a financial associate for over 30 years at Harvard University, so that's my background. So I do not approve of the raise, because I think the fire department and the other departments, if they're not going to get a raise, then nobody else should. But if we're going to give the teachers a raise, then everybody should.
Hi there, Caitlin Bell.
Excuse me. She has the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Seem to be working. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So I just wanted to correct a statement that was made about the other people's contracts. People in this town did open up contracts. The superintendent opened up his contract, the town administrator opened up his contract, and many other people had a contract, and they opened them up so that they could take a 0% raise. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear that it wasn't just the teachers being asked to open their contracts. There were other people in town that did as well.
Hi, Caitlin Bell, 43 Highland Ave. I just want to note that the teachers of West Bridgewater work really hard, and they are among the lowest paid teachers in Eastern Massachusetts. If what I saw in the school committee presentation was correct, we also are among the lowest in the state in terms of what we spend per student. We rely heavily on school choice. We rely heavily on a residential tax base. We are unfriendly to business in this town. I know we turned down a 24-hour gym. I know we turned down a dog training facility.
Let's stay focused on the...
Okay, I will. I have a point. What I'm saying is, if we want to be a desirable community that relies heavily on residential taxes to cover our budget, don't you think that the schools play a role in that? We want to have schools that people want to come to. We rely heavily on school choice in our budget, so we want schools that people want to come to. By underpaying the teachers and cutting the education budget, I believe we make ourselves a less desirable town to live in. So I would encourage everybody to think about that when you're voting on the increase in teacher salary. Our teachers work really hard and don't get paid very well.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote on Anthony's amendment. I move to amend the motion on the floor to transfer $458,000 from the town's stabilization account, $222,000 to budget 3,000, education line 3230, teaching services, and $236,000 to the budget 9100, benefits line 5119, other salaries. Now, based on the size of this room, I'm going to call for this as a ballot vote. It is a 2/3 vote, by the way.
Mr. Moderator, Neil Conley, did the Finance Committee approve of this amendment?
The vote has already been called for.
Vote by
The
who?
Finance
You
Committee
moved the
did not
question with
take a vote on this.
You did not.
This has been presented tonight at town meeting.
Now, for a little clarity, Mr. Moderator, if we approve of this amendment, what about the other two amendments?
If this amendment gets passed, which is Anthony's, Bill Flynn's is not going to be on the table. This other amendment could still be in play if it is presented.
Then we had a lady here that put in an amendment. That'd be 3, correct? The way it sounds like, if we pass Anthony's, this baby's dead, it's over. Then we're going right back into the regular, correct?
If this motion amended, as amended, passes, it gets a 2/3 vote. We don't need to vote on her amendment. If it doesn't, then her motion would come forward.
All I'm saying, I disagree what I heard earlier in the night about the Robert's Rules of Order, but I'm not going back there. But we should have all three, we should be able to vote on all 3 amendments. If not, put them all on the table. We vote for A, B, or C, and that's how you do it. If not, you vote on every amendment. Even if it passes, you go to the next one and the next one. I've been around, I've been to many meetings.
I appreciate your input. I've been doing this for 45 years. I think I know what I'm doing.
Well, I'm close to you, 42 years.
So anyway, so we're going to do this as a ballot vote. So we're going to have Ann help.
So there's a problem. We asked for volunteers. We need at least 4, possibly 6 people to help with the tally, and no one has come forward. So if you'd like to come forward, please come forward.
So this was a 2/3 vote, and the motion passed 140 yeses, 28 noes, for 83% vote for. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Moving on to Southeastern Regional VOTEC.
Neil Colley, 376 Water Street. How come the budget went up $50,000 this year, just Southeastern?
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, the budget for Southeastern Regional went up 50,000.
So we're up about 8%. The Southeast Regional is at base foundational budget, so we only fund them at the minimum that's required, that's what their request is. And so it's highly volatile based on the employment, on the enrollment for the town of West Bridgewater. So our student count went up about 8%, so their budget would go about 8% as well.
Just remember in the past, we always had the superintendent from Southeastern always come to the meetings, and they always speak and explain everything. And I remember the time he used to shoot that budget down. But anyways, how many kids do we have there going there? It's a great school anyways, vocational school. Any kid that wants to get smart, there's a place to go.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to move on. Board of Health.
Jamie Pope, 140 Scotland Street. I noticed that the department requested only $11,000 for nursing services. So as a point of clarification, could you explain why the Board of Selectmen and FinCom voted to increase nursing services line 5,312 for $10,000 more than what was requested by the department? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take that one. The Board of Selectmen were really concerned about COVID. So we placed a message out in December that said all budgets need to be level funded. However, we understood that there was going to be some examples that we may have to make some tweaks. Obviously, we needed to increase our nursing services this past year. And thanks to a combination of state funds and federal funds, we vastly outspent that line, but charged it off to those state and federal funds. I think everybody understands why that would be the case. Those funds are going to dry up scheduled to dry up at the end of this year. But COVID may be with us for longer. Now, if it's not, great, we don't spend the money. But because we anticipate that COVID may be here, the funds may not still be available at the state and federal level, we made a decision to increase it to make sure those people who need those nursing services tied to COVID are served.
Any further discussion?
Hearing none, moving on. Retirement of debt.
So, Mr. Moderator, whoever read this warrant in the beginning, I didn't understand how they presented it, because during their description of the warrant, can I have the warrant reread? There was a term about retirement of debt at the high school, and I didn't understand what that was. Is that in addition to what this line item is on retirement of debt, or is it just an explanation? So if you reread what was presented at the start of this warrant, maybe I'll understand what I misunderstood about retirement of debt.
Are you referring to the $350,000, Jack?
I don't remember the dollar amount because I thought if it was just this line item that would be in this budget, there would be no need to include it in the wording of the warrant article that was presented.
Yeah, no problem. Scott, do you want me to take it, or would you like to? Okay. So when the town decides to borrow, you authorize borrowing costs at some previous either election and/or town meeting. That then is paid for out of this budget. If you go back to the beginning of Article 4, you will see that there says a transfer of $350,000 to pay down the debt on the middle school, high school. So this $2 million or $1.9 million is real debt that has to be paid. We have, since I've been here, we have transferred $350,000 every single year from free cash that in essence offsets this budget, so that way it lowers your tax bill. We still have to disclose to you, though, as to what our debt payments would be, and that's why this budget is reflective of that, and then the $350,000 is reflective in the initial motion.
So the 350 is not additional, it's just you're getting the money out of free cash instead of next year's allotment, is that?
I would say that we're getting the $350,000 of the $1.9 million from free cash, and then you're paying the difference either through taxes or, other fees.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion on retirement of debt?
Hearing none, I'm going to move on to interest on long-term debt. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to interest on short-term debt. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to water.
Jamie Pope, 140 Scotland Street. So I was just, I had a point of clarification regarding the town water services budget. Here there was iron removal plant, but then it was again specified in the special warrants. So I was just a little confused, and I was asking for a point of clarification, what the difference was, please.
Do you want to take?
Not sure. What are you looking at?
Wayne, it's the capital project. The two,
All right, so
we have the two
pay
capital
for
projects
iron
for a
removal
study.
plant, principal, and interest on our loans. Is that? Article 24, 23, is that one of my line items? Oh, no, that's, the articles are completely different from the budget.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, that concludes all the holds. So the new budget total is $37,523,742. And now we're going to call for a vote on approval of that budget. Is there a second? All those in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right. Article 5. It's going to be presented by Paula Bunker.
Steve had to leave, so I'm presenting this for the Board of Assessors. We move that the town accepts the provision of Section 4 of Chapter 73 of the Acts of 1986 and to further accept the provisions of Chapter 126 of the Acts of 1988, which will grant a percentage increase to real estate tax exemptions to persons who are otherwise qualified for such exemptions, and further to increase the real estate tax exemption to persons qualified by 25% for fiscal year 2022.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Finance Committee voted unanimously 7-0 in favor of this.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, if accepted, the exemptions will increase by 25%. The exemption for the elderly, it was originally $500. For fiscal year 2022, it'll increase to $625. Widows over 70 is currently at $175. Will increase to, sorry, this is way too small to read. It looks like $218.75. Veterans, $400 will increase, sorry, I cannot read this.
To 500.
To 500, thank you. And for blind, 500 goes to 625.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 6, Chris Iannatelli.
Chris Iannatelli, 268 South Elm Street, Department of Public Works. Move that the town vote to accept and authorize to spend $321,509 from the town's apportionment of Chapter 90 local transportation aid funding for the fiscal year 2022 in accordance with the figures released by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation in accordance with Chapter 86 of the Acts of 2008.
Thank you. Is there a second? Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion?
This is our yearly dollar amount that we get from Chapter 90 from the state, from Mass DOT, that we put back into road repair and construction.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 7, Chris Iannatelli.
This is the community preservation article. Move that the town vote to appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund estimated revenues the following amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, open space, historic resources, and community housing reserves, and other expenses in fiscal year 2022, with each item to be a separate appropriation or reserve.
Thank you. Is there a second? Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Thanks. Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Thanks. Would you like to speak to the motion?
This is our annual divvying out of CPA funds that go into different locations, different buckets of open space, historic resources, community housing, and then the rest goes into undesignated funds, and we also have an administrative expense. If we have an article that we are asking for under one of those categories, you will see that we're putting zero into that because we're already using the money into the article.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 8, Chris Iannatelli.
Move that the town vote to transfer $2,722 to Community Housing Reserve and $2,700 122 to historic reserve for CPA unreserved fund balance to meet the 10% state requirement.
Thank you. Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously, 7-0.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion?
This was an increase that we received last fall because the match that went to the town was increased by the state after town meeting. So we got an additional amount of money that we put into these, that we are now putting into these buckets.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 9, Chris Iantelli.
That the town vote to appropriate $69,106 from the FY22 Community Preservation Fund estimated budget revenue to fund the debt service for the open space project of the new playground at Friendship Park.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended by the Finance Committee unanimously.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion?
This is a payment towards the $320,000 project that you voted on 2 years ago, and we've bonded the money, so we are slowly paying off this debt.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 10, Chris Iantelli.
Move that the town vote to appropriate from the FY 2022 Community Preservation Fund estimated revenues, a sum of which up to $110,000 under the category of historic preservation to be expended by the Department of Public Works for the historic preservation and repairs to the town-owned cemeteries.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
This will begin Phase 3 of our preservation of town-owned cemeteries. You may have noticed we've been working in the South Street Cemetery the last few years, restoring the stones and the tombs.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 11, Chief Flaherty.
Move that the town raise and appropriate a sum of $10,000 as the town's match for the Web Task Force for fiscal year 2022.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Just a quick overview. This task force has been together. We got grants back in the late 90s, like 95, 96, so we're looking at our 25th year. We started with the 3 Bridgewaters, Bridgewater, East Bridgewater, and us to basically share resources. It's a very successful task force. We have now, probably the last 12 or 13 years, has added Bridgewater State College and Whitman to it. So we're just going to continue what we've been doing since like 95.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 12, Chris Iantelli.
Move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $150,000 to be expended by the Department of Public Works for the construction and engineering of sidewalks.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
This will be our 4th year that we've come before town meeting to ask for funding for sidewalk construction, which is ongoing now in town.
Thank you. Any discussion?
on the street. Through the chair, I'd like to ask Chris, where are we doing sidewalks now? And just give us an idea how much it costs to do it. And when you put the sidewalks in, are you putting brand new ones in? Are you going to restore the curbstone that's there?
Right now, we've been working on the south side of Route 106. We began on Howard Street. We are also working in front of the War Memorial Park. We do a new construction sidewalk with a granite curb.
And who's doing the work? Is it the town, or do we give it out to a subcontractor?
We send that out to a contractor that's on our bid list.
And what is the whole cost for what you're doing, just what you're doing now? It's more than $150,000, I'm sure.
Oh, sure, yes. This is our fourth year of getting $100,000 for 2 years and $150,000 for 2 years. We also received a grant for $250,000 this past spring, and we're working on some other grants so that we're trying to combine both town meeting money as well as state grant money.
Just for a point, I know the meetings that we've had, people wanted sidewalks. I remember the gentleman that come up and asked if we could just have a whole synopsis of what sidewalks we're going to do and how they're going to be done, and put a final tab on it. Maybe go over and just go after all the money at once and just get it done. I know it's a big concern about sidewalks in the town. Just for a point.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 13, Chris Iantelli.
Move that the town vote to transfer a sum of $2,217 from the Commonwealth Infrastructure Enhancement Trust Fund to be expended for the construction and engineering of sidewalks.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
This is a state-run program that for every Uber ride in West Bridgewater, we get a few pennies. They put it together, and they come up with this dollar amount at the end of the year, and it's to be used for infrastructure, so I put it into the sidewalk fund.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 14, Chris Iantelli.
Move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $18,685 to be expended by the Department of Public Works to purchase a Kubota 72-inch mower.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to talk to it?
This will be replacing a 2010 zero-turn Kubota tractor, one of several that we have in the department that is on its last legs, and we'll keep it and we'll use it as a backup for parts.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 15, Chris Iantelli.
Move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $41,690 to be expended by the Department of Public Works to purchase a Ford F-250 pickup with a plow, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of the vehicle to be taken out of service in the best interest of the town.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
This will replace an F-150 2010 pickup that is in pretty rough shape. The frame and so forth is totally rotted on it. We've got estimates of $18,000 to repair, and even then, it's an old truck. So it's time to move on, and this time we're going to be purchasing a 250 with a plow so that we can use it for snow removal.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 16, Chief Flaherty.
Move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $51,958 to be expended by the police department to purchase a police cruiser and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of the vehicle to be taken out of service in the best interest of the town.
Is there a second?
Second.
Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
This is going to replace one of our cruisers you see here. I think this is a 2016, up at 120-something thousand miles. It's been hit 3 times, unfortunately. And unfortunately, this year, Ford has changed, well, actually last year, the design, so we can't transfer the equipment into this new car. So that's why the price is a little higher, because they do these changes, I think, so that they can sell more product.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 17, Michael White.
Move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $68,800 to be expended by the building department to purchase HVAC mini-split units for the town hall offices, removing the existing residential AC units and boarding up the old AC unit wall openings.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Basically, we're looking to replace the old residential wall units. We've got several departments that the units aren't functioning anymore, so they've been suffering in the summer months, and we're looking to upgrade to some mini splits that will also have the capability of heat for the fall and the spring before we fire up the main boilers in the building.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 18, Bill Flynn.
That the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $48,235 to be expended by the school committee to purchase a Ford F-250 pickup with a plow with the authorization of the Board of Selectmen to dispose of the vehicle to be taken out of service in the best interest of the town.
Thank you. Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, this is replacing a 2007 Ford F-150 two-wheel drive with a lot of rot. We got an estimate of about $18,000 to fix it. The truck's only worth $500.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 19, Selectman Reyes.
Denise Reyes, 48 Columbus Avenue, Board of Selectmen. Move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $20,000 to be expended by the Board of Selectmen to fund a town-wide event in calendar year 2022 to recognize the town's 200th anniversary as an incorporated town in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure. Who doesn't love a party? So just in summary, we have right now a committee of 1. We expect we'll have multiple other volunteers in town that will be appointed to the committee. We expect there will likely be donations as well from individuals and businesses and events. You know, seeing how our anniversary is in February, it may not be an ideal time to have any sort of party, but maybe we can do something then to recognize the official date and then continue on throughout the year. Just some ideas. We've had ideas such as fireworks thrown out there, just multiple ideas. I think it'll be a great event for the town, a great celebration, and I hope we receive a yes vote to this very loudly.
Thank you. Any discussion on the article? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 20, and this is a 2/3 vote. Chief Thibault?
Move that the town vote to borrow a sum of $345,000 to be expended by the fire department to purchase and equip a new ambulance and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of the vehicle to be taken out of service in the best interest of the town.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
This is to replace the 11-year-old ambulance that's a 4x2 with a new 2022 F550 4x4 ambulance.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Neil Conley. I just want to say, I hope I don't get emotional. You guys come out twice to my house, and you guys did an excellent job. I was here when they still had the old ones, when we were up at the old high school, and the old-timers were saying back then, why do we have to get the current ones coming up to date? And you had to explain to them why, which is a good thing. They wanted the answers. But the way everything's changing, but the way you gentlemen, there was no ladies there. They were just, that showed up at my house. I want to thank you very much. And with your knowledge and what's inside those vehicles, I hope it don't have to go to anybody's house. But when it does get there, it's all in that vehicle, and they can save your life. Sad part is you saved my, oh, I'll leave it alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 21, Wayne Parks.
I'm going to feel a little let down after I saw all the new vehicles going out. Move that the town vote to transfer from water surplus a sum of $20,000 to be expended by the water commissioners to refit an existing Ford F-250 with a utility body.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
So in 2019, just after town meeting, a gentleman fell asleep going down Manley Street and hit one of our vans head-on with two of our people in it. Our vans are loaded with lots of sharp objects, big, pointy, heavy things, little small projectiles. The back of the van looked like it had blown up. What saved the guys inside was the cage that separated the back from the front. The current van that the guys drive does not have a cage. It can't be fitted with the cage because there's a important piece of equipment in it, a hydraulic unit. So for their safety, and they're on the road more often than I am, I'm giving up my town truck, which I fought hard for many years ago, and having it refitted with a utility body so that they don't have to suffer worrying if they're going to get hit by anything behind them. I, in turn, will take the van with less projectiles in it and use it when I need to get around.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Hi, Deborah Idell, 183 North Elm Street. I'm actually asking this question for my husband because he couldn't be here tonight. He's a diesel mechanic, and he wants to know why we always buy Fords.
I agree with that one.
Is there a particular reason we always buy Fords? Okay.
Actually, there is. We have a town mechanic who is a certified A mechanic through Ford. He's been with us. I've been here for 8 years. He predates me, so he's been here about 10 years. And so we are the DPW department. We pay for him to continue all of his certifications through Ford. So it allows him to be able to work on those parts, and we could do more work in-house than subletting it out.
Thank you so much. I won't make him watch all of town meeting for it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 22, Wayne Parks.
All right, move that the town vote to transfer from water surplus a sum of $100,000 to be expended by the water commissioners to purchase water meters.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
All right, so we take in fees when we install meters in new houses, but we can't touch that money till we go through a town meeting, just as we are right now. We also have a line item that allows us to buy some when we run out. Currently, there's probably about 100 houses going to come to fruition in the next couple of years, plus we'll begin gathering up to remeter the town, which will begin in a couple of more years also. So this is to allow us to be able to have meters in stock so that when the 40B that's on Scotland Street that's moving at great paces comes to fruition, we have meters to install. We will take in funds, and it'll go into our surplus as a result, and at some point transfer it again.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 23, Wayne Parks.
Move that the town vote to transfer from water surplus the sum of $50,000 to be expended by the water commissioners for engineering work for the redesign of an existing iron manganese removal plant to treat for PFAS.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended unanimously. Sorry.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
I wish I had Alex Trebek here to say how PFAS sounds, but I can't. The next two articles will deal with PFAS, polyfluorinated substances. They're a very large group of chemicals. We underwent free testing for PFAS before the required testing will begin this fall. Manley Street tested in the 19s, just under the MCL of 20 milligrams per liter. In English, because we were supposed to switch over to metric, we half did, we half didn't. So in English, that's 0.0024 ounces per gallon. If and when we exceed the MCL, and we will eventually exceed it, we will be required to send out letters to all residents that our water supply has been contaminated and has high levels of the contaminants PFAS. PFAS has been labeled the forever chemical since it stays around long after it's not in use. There is evidence that the exposure to PFAS can lead to adverse health outcomes in humans. Unfortunately, the chemicals that make up most of the current PFAS-6 that we're regulated to test for are not banned and are in full use today. You most likely have PFAS throughout your home. Anyone like microwave popcorn, stain-resistant carpet or fabrics, or takeout food that comes in boxes that don't soak up with oil. It's easier currently to name things that don't have PFAS in it, and I would have a hard time doing that also.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion?
Wayne, do you have any idea if we exceed the PFAS level, what a town our size has spent in PFAS remediation?
So currently the town of Wayland spends $300,000 a month in bottled water. We need the Manley Street site. So we have 7 wells. Only 2 of those wells, Manley Street, are on the other side of town. The other 5 are all in the Matfield Street area. I can't run more than 2 at a time without hearing about yellow water because we pick up the turbulence or the velocity change cleanses the pipes and scrapes them clean. Water usually flows down the center of the pipe, but the minute you change the velocity, it starts reaching out. Well, in the outer edges is where all the other things that you don't want in your water hang out. Not that there's anything really bad there. It's just, you know, dust bunnies occur under your bed over time, and that's the same in the water mains. When we exceed the 20, I'll be told to shut the well down, both of the wells, or start handing out bottled water. We're going to come down, with the articles that I'm doing tonight, we're going to come down to $100,000 in free cash. So I don't have $300,000 a month to spend on bottled water.
Thank you.
Just curious, how old are our water pipes that run through this town?
So my predecessors have done a very good job. We've used some sequestering agents to keep all of the minerals in solution. We've cut open 100-year-old pipes, and they're clean. There's no tuberculation in them. Dirt, it exists because we have minerals in our water, and it sloughs off into the side of the pipe because water wants to flow down the sides. Some of the pipes date back to 1910.
Real quick, is there anything down the road, probably before I might not be around, but changing all the pipes in the town? Because I hear in other towns, I see them digging up, excuse me, digging up the roads, putting a new pipe in. I don't know if it's for storage and water or whatever. And what's the difference from the old pipe to the new pipe? Is it like 4 or 6 inch now, or 8 inch?
So we have a standard in our subdivisions of 8 inch. So the number that I hear quoted quite often is $1 million a mile. Like I said, I'm down to $100,000 in surplus. So I don't think there's any water mains going to be run except in new subdivisions currently.
Jack Hughes, 640 North Elm Street. I had a question about the existing iron manganese removal plant. That's still going to work, correct, even after we modify it?
Yes, so all we're going to do is try to refit it with charcoal, which will adsorb. So sponge absorbs, charcoal in the green sand adsorbs. It sticks to the outside of it. PFAS chains stick to it, but they don't release. So it becomes a hazardous waste. So over time, when I said that eventually we will exceed the MCL, that's what's basically happening. Our raw water supply is testing lower than the plant output, but I have to test the plant output because that's what goes to the customer's U. So yes, the plant will still work. We're just going to refit it with a different media.
Rick Kruger, I'm also a water commissioner. Just so you understand what this whole thing is actually all about, this chemical that's PFAS, this is a fire retardant. And we thought at first, well, we're safe because we're probably not going to find any because we don't have that many foam fires that the fire department's putting out. Well, then we found out that this chemical is found in the water because the fire retardant is in all our clothes and on our rugs and all our furniture and everything we do every day, the chemical is in it. So as we wash our clothes, it goes into the septic system, and then it gets into the water supply. So I asked the state if they've come out with any mandates to maybe do away with this chemical in future use, and they said no. They're going to keep adding it into the environment. We have to pay to get it out. And we could be looking at probably, we got 4 pumping stations, building another iron removal plant. It could cost maybe $1 million or $2 million for each pumping station to get rid of this chemical, which it doesn't make any sense to me that the state representatives and the senators aren't concerned that upstream we're polluting the water, and then they're telling us we got to take it out, but there's no mandates to stop using it. So water rates are definitely going to have to go up because you're going to pay for it. So if we're mandated to spend, $4 million or $5 million in the next 4 or 5 years, your water rates are going to go screaming high. So it just doesn't make any sense, and there's no money available to help us pay for it. The state hasn't made anything available, so we're just stuck with the taking care of the problem.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 24, Wayne Parks.
All right. Move that the town vote to transfer from water surplus the sum of $50,000 to be expended by the water commissioners for engineering work for the design of a new iron manganese PFAS removal plant.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
All right, so the drought has affected our water chemistry in some of our wells. Although we may not currently be in a drought, the damage is done. 2 of our stations are testing high for iron and manganese. Manganese has a health time advisory, so it's kind of critical. The other station is having a new well installed, so I couldn't test it yet. But it will be tested prior to bringing it back online. The idea is to bring these 5 sources. I said that we had 5 wells on Matfield Street. Those are the 5 sources. And bring them into one plant and then treat it there for iron, manganese, and PFAS. So this funding is for engineering work for the planning of a treatment plant.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 25, Wayne Parks.
Move that the town vote to transfer from water surplus the sum of $87,700 to be expended by the water commissioners to pay down principal on the tank painting loan.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
This is a simple taking surplus cash and paying down debt.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 26, Wayne Parks.
Move that the town vote to transfer from water surplus the sum of $57,500 to be expended by the water commissioners to pay down principal on a new well loan.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
So it's basically, again, a pay down of debt. They actually installed the screen today in the new well. It's been almost 2 years in the getting to point. It takes a long time to go through DEP approvals. So we've got the screen in, the next is a pump test, and then sizing out the pumps, and after that we should be pretty good. But basically, pay down of debt. Sorry.
Any further discussion?
Wayne, when we exceed the PFAS level,
Yep.
and we have to go to a boil water, how much notice would we receive?
All right, so a boil water won't do anything with PFAS.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a boil water, I'll be told to shut the well down or begin distributing bottled water, because they'll tell you not to consume it at that point. I haven't seen the notice that you have to hand out, but I've heard it's pretty inflammatory.
And Wayland is doing that now?
In Wayland, yeah, there are several towns that have got. There is money available, but you have to fail first to get the money. Even though we're between anything above 10, they start looking at you, but once you get above 20, then you get funding.
And what are we at now, 19?
We're in the 19s. We've tested 19.1, 19.8. It goes up and down, but it's right there at the limit.
Okay, so if you don't have enough money to supply the town with water, then you have to do a special meeting to try to get funds from the stabilization account? Is that how it would work?
Well, we're still many steps. DEP won't. You have to get approvals, and when it's an emergency, they move a little faster, but the wheels don't grind that fast. At some point, money will have to come from somewhere. You heard Rick. At some point, the rates may have to be adjusted. to begin for these two big projects.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 27, Selectman Kinahan.
Move to see if the town will vote pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40, Section 59, to approve the tax increment financing agreement between the town and Di Bertolo Development substantially in the form as is on file with the town clerk, the TIF agreement, which TIF agreement provides for real estate tax exemptions at the exemption rate schedule set forth therein, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute the TIF agreement and to submit a certified local incentive-only application in the TIF agreement to the Massachusetts Economic Assistance Coordinating Council, all relating to the project as described in the TIF agreement to be located at 21 Lincoln Street, and to take such other actions as may be necessary to obtain approval of the certified local incentive-only application and to implement the TIF agreement or take any other action relative thereto and to make any changes to said agreement as may be required by the Massachusetts Economic Assistance Coordinating Council.
Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, so this is related to the proposed project at the corner of 106 and Lincoln Street, where at the last town meeting it was voted to switch the zoning to industrial from commercial. What this project does in this TIF is it aligns Crescent and Lincoln Street. It installs a traffic signal at that newly created intersection. It widens a portion of 106 to add turn lanes and throughput lanes. It adds a turn lane on Lincoln and Crescent Street, and it installs sidewalks on Route 106 and Lincoln Street to South Elm Street.
This is Article 27.
Yeah. No, this is related to the TIF. This is what the TIF agreement is for, this construction. So it's estimated that the cost of construction of this intersection and roadway improvements is $4.8 million. Of that, the town is agreeing to $2.475 million, roughly half of the construction amount that would essentially be forgiven as part of this TIF through, it would take about 5 to 7 years that there'd be the tax incentive to repay about half of the construction costs. So the developer out of pocket would pay roughly half of the construction project. There won't be any tax dollars used immediately. It will just be through this TIF agreement. And after the TIF expires, after we've given the incentive of the 2.475, it's estimated that the town will receive $700,000 to $800,000 a year in tax revenue from this project.
Thank you. We're going to open up to discussion.
Excuse me. Ruth Beauchamp, 17 Lincoln Street. Where is 21 Lincoln Street?
That's what the address is.
21 Lincoln Street? 21 Lincoln Street will be the new address for that commercial entity, for the warehouse.
Is that right across from Russo's, where Russo's was?
Yes. No, so there's, on the right-hand side of Lincoln Street now, there is, I believe it's 4 homes, and then after you get past there, there is a large expanse that is owned by the current developer. Yeah, it's up there. And so in that area, there will be a driveway, and that's what will be named 21 Lincoln Street.
Okay, thank you.
So I got a number of questions on the TIF, the TIF. Like, what are the terms of the TIF? How much are we not getting if we held our typical tax rate and he had to pay the full taxes that the town assessed him at?
Okay, so the estimated cost, we've had 3 different bids, is somewhere between $4.1 and $4.8 million. The developer will invest his money and do all of that work. If this TIF agreement is to be approved, then he will then, over the course of 5 to 7 years, be reimbursed $2,225,000 for construction costs. So in essence, we're paying about 50% of the project. In addition to that, as part of the TIF agreement, the town is going to incur soft costs. So for example, we need to hire a professional engineer to do review. We're certainly going to have legal fees. There's going to be some easements and takings that are going to have to be done. And whenever we do those, we have to do appraisals to determine valuation. We didn't think that it would be right for the town to have to pay for that money up front. We don't have that, we don't have the ability. So what we said to the developer is, you're going to give us $250,000 in cash up front. We're going to deposit into an account, which is your next article to set up. We'll use his money to pay all of those costs to protect the interest of the town. If all of those costs come to fruition, then the total value is $2,475,000. Massachusetts general law is that it has to be paid no less than 5 years or up to 20 years. But I think everybody in this room would agree that we would like to accelerate repayment because we don't want to give them 20 years. We'd like to just get our money, get to that point. So we wrote this TIF agreement for 7 years because we can't estimate with any exactness as to what their tax bill is going to be 3, 4, 5 years from now, the same way we couldn't do for your house. So we wrote it for 7 years. However, there's a caveat in there that if it achieves the valuation that we expect it to, it will pay off in 5 years, and in 5 years, the agreement then ceases and terminates.
So, Mr. Gagné, my question relates to the percentage of decrease that we're spreading it, but it sounds like we're only dealing with $4.5, $5 million, which is what it costs to improve the road. What is happening to his developed costs? Are we going to assess those regularly for the building that he builds there and the work that he has in the building, the equipment he has in the building?
All right, so we're leveraging what we believe the taxes will be on that warehouse construction project. He's intending to invest somewhere around $15 to $20 million plus his land costs, which will total around 30. We're right now estimating the valuation to be between 30 to 35 million. So
that's when it's all done?
That is correct.
And that doesn't include the road?
The road, there's no tax, like he doesn't owe taxes on roads.
Right.
So we're leveraging by saying to him up front, look, if you want this project, you're going to have to shell out $4.5, $5 million up front, do all of the work that, quite frankly, we would be responsible for. But as an incentive to do that and to build your property, we will reimburse you over a 5 to 7 year period of time to back to $2.4 million. And so, I don't know if I'm answering your question. I feel like
you are. I finally kind of figured it out. So what we're saying is that the cost of the road improvements, we're going to give him in reduced taxes for 7 years.
Right, and most likely it'll be 5, but you are correct, it is written for 7 to be safe.
Okay, I got it, I understand it, and that is a fixed term. I know of other instances in other cities where municipalities where they come back at the developer and try to renegotiate the TIF 4 years from now. We're not gonna do any of that, right?
No, this is to protect us. We want the road improvements, and the quicker we get this done, the better, because I want to get to full and fair taxation as quickly as possible.
So what does he pay tax on in the building itself? But he's not paying on what is stored in the building. He's paying on the building itself and the equipment in the building that moves and handles the stuff, right?
Yep, so for the first 3 years, he will pay 40%, and we will give him a 60% reduction. But here's the beauty of the way we wrote it. If you look at a lot of other TIF agreements, there are 2 types of taxes that all businesses pay. They pay real estate taxes. You're all familiar with that. You all pay that on your homes. But businesses also pay personal property taxes as well that, quite frankly, can get hundreds of thousands of dollars per year on a development this large. We are exempting 0 on that. So we are going to collect 100% of those taxes from day one.
Thank you. It sounds like a good agreement. I'm in favor, but I'm glad you explained it to me.
Jamie Pope, 140 Scotland Street. I have a question about the TIF agreement. Why does it end, the sidewalks end at South Elm Street? It's my understanding that the person or entity that is building this warehouse on Lincoln Street is also the same entity that built the gigantic warehouse on Elm Street in West Bridgewater. And anybody on Scotland Street can tell you that we're dealing not just with large vehicles construction-wise, with the development behind us off Maple Street, but with big 18-wheelers coming down Lincoln all the way to, a little baby part of South Elm and down to Scotland. And that street is very narrow, and we do not have sidewalks. And we have a lot of kids, and with all those houses going in, there's going to be even more kids. So I'm curious why the TIF agreement didn't extend from South Elm down Scotland Street, where we know these trucks are going now. And is there an opportunity to amend the TIF agreement to require sidewalks down Scotland Street as well?
So hopefully I'm going to have good news for you about the trucks. I will tell you, government is slow. But a year ago, Mr. Mello and I had a conversation, and the Board of Selectmen have been supportive of trying to make sure that we could get a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on Scotland Street. I've been working behind the scenes with the town manager in Bridgewater, and my understanding is that we have an agreement, but I don't have a signature yet, so I don't want to say that it's etched in stone, because it's not, but my understanding is that they are going to agree to it. Our next step then is to go to the state and seek permission, so hopefully we are going to be able to stop your heavy vehicles not pertaining to the specific construction project there, but everybody else, because we fully get it, we understand it, we're trying to eradicate that traffic as much as we can. To answer your question about the sidewalks, his property to his entrance is about 800 feet from Route 106. Lincoln Street runs 3,300 feet. I can tell you that we have been working on this for a year. This has been constant negotiation and battle, and we settled at $2.25 million, but I can tell you he wanted $5 million. So we negotiated and negotiated and negotiated and negotiated, and his answer was always no on sidewalks. And we finally, during negotiations, finally got him to agree to do sidewalks all the way down South Elm, which his argument is that's 2,500 feet past his entrance. He shouldn't be responsible for sidewalks past his entrance. But that's what we negotiated. My personal opinion, I think it's a fantastic deal. We're going to have Russo Athletic Complex up there someday. I can now get a sidewalk from that complex down to Route 106 to keep kids safe. I agree with you, we have to keep on adding sidewalks throughout town. That's why we put another $150,000 in the fund earlier, and I think we're all committed to continuously doing that. But there was only we were just at the end of the ropes with the developer. We're getting all this project done at 50 cents on the dollar and a sidewalk that, quite frankly, brings no value to him, and that's only because we kept on negotiating with him.
So I guess a point of clarification then, when we give this money for the sidewalks, $150,000 today, where is the appropriate venue to then, as a taxpayer, identify where the highest areas of need are for sidewalks, which department, town meeting, et cetera? Because I understand we're starting at the schools and circling outwards. However, I think that should be balanced with a risk-based assessment approach. So where would we go as taxpayers to review that?
Have a conversation with the DPW director.
Thank you.
Neil Conley, 376 Walnut Street. That project you're talking about, Dave, through the chair, I'd like to talk to Dave. When he sold us, we don't even know what's going in there to begin with. We're talking that big building behind the Shell gas station, correct? And they said they were looking for a grant, or you were trying to seek a grant through the state to have 106 in Lincoln Street, that intersection taken care of, correct? And we didn't get the money. That's what I was told.
That is correct. It's the same intersection, and yes, we did apply, and unfortunately, we were declined.
All right, so now we're jumping down the road. We're going to make that look pretty to sell this TIF, which I'm 100% against. It's a greedy developer, wants everything for free. He should be doing that with his wallet open. Is that what you want down there? No problem. He's putting a building up there. It's going to be a big warehouse, and we're going to be stuck with it. The police are going to have to respond. The fire department's going to have to respond. Anything that goes wrong there. So it's costing us more money for him being there. But he don't want to do that. That's how they work. Now you want to sit there and say, what's going on 106 up there? You just say we didn't get a grant. He wasn't even supposed to go forward with this project until that was approved. Now you're going to give him this? You'd be crazy to vote for this. Tell him to open his wallet. How much is he worth? How many buildings does he have? How many employees does he have? You're going to put a little sidewalk in and you're going to buy it? Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moderator, I request a secret ballot, and I hope the town votes this down.
So that was one call for a ballot vote. Are there 7 other people in favor of it? Please stand up. Okay.
Mr. Moderator? Are you still taking comments? Are you still taking comments on this?
Yes.
Okay. So, 268 South Elm, Chris Shanatelli, DPW Director. This is one of the worst intersections in West Bridgewater. Anybody that travels out of Lincoln Street to take a left-hand turn or out of Crescent Street to take a left-hand turn understands what I'm talking about. This is an opportunity, as David mentioned, of a lifetime for this town to have this paid for. The property is zoned industrial, but it could also be used for commercial, as a shopping plaza, or residential. And if we put homes in there, apartments, you're going to see a big change to your school department. This, as we presented it last year at town meeting, is the less stress for the community. The biggest bang for your buck for tax revenue. Industrial does not cost police and fire more than typical runs. It's not like a housing unit. And it does not pull on your tax base like housing does. Nothing wrong with housing, but that's the reality of this. So just keep that in mind, okay? Looking at it from the perspective of where we can get the best bang for our buck.
Any further discussion before we move to the ballots?
Yeah, as a water commissioner, there's only a 4-inch main on Lincoln Street. You couldn't put out a doghouse if it was on fire. Are they gonna, they're definitely gonna need a 12-inch main, at least to service that building. The 12-inch main ends right now on West Street at 106, it's dead ended there. Are they going to extend that down Lincoln Street? And there is a 12-inch connection down at South Elm in Lincoln. Are they going to connect it all the way down, or what's the plan there?
I don't know where it's going to end, but if you have a conversation with Wayne, you will know that their engineer has already had conversations with them. They know that it ends on West Street. They know they have to tie in. They know that we have a small water main, and they know they have to make it larger than that. I don't know any of the other details, except that I do know they've had the conversation. He understands what's required, and I know that, what you guys are going to need or want, it's already been communicated to them.
Oh, to put out that building, I know that they would need at least that 12-inch and the 8-inch at the other end. It should be looped so that they got two mains feeding that street. So I know an 8-inch main that's cost over $1 million a mile. You said it's 3,000 something feet long. So if we have to do any type of extension there, the ratepayers will end up paying for it. So we want to get them to do as much as we possibly can in this deal so that the ratepayers who are sitting here don't have to pick up the tab. Because if they don't do it, we're going to have to.
Is there any new information to be presented?
Karen Snell, 104 Copeland Street. I just have two questions. Is the road and the light going to be built first before his building? And is there a contingency plan if this contractor goes bankrupt?
Yeah, you mean if it doesn't get approved tonight?
No, I'm saying if we approve it and the building starts and he starts doing everything and all of a sudden he's out of money because he made some bad decisions, what happens? Then we're in the middle of construction.
Yeah, I mean, he'll have to put up some type of a bond during construction, but he's going to have to do the construction work at the same time as he's going to be looking to try to do some of his work to build his building. He's not going to be able to get permitted for operational purposes until all the road work is done. So he's going to be incentivized. I mean, I don't care how rich he is. The bottom line is nobody shells out $5 million to not be operational. So if he's going to put that money into it, he's incentivizing himself to try to get to operation as quickly as possible, and then he'll go in front of the planning board, and he'll have to do site plan review and whatever other reviews they have to do in order to open up the warehouse. And he's not going to be able to do it until that construction is complete. He's aware of that, and he knows he can't get the permit until that.
So meaning the construction at the light in the intersection?
Yeah, he's going to have to do all of that work before he can get a permit to operate.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Murray, I just want to respond to Chris. Chris, I'm not against the project. I'm against the taxpayer paying for something we're told we'll not have to pay anything but deliver water to the site, pay for the water. 106 was going to be done first if we got the grant. We didn't get the grant. Now this is Plan B. They want to do this. Now they're going to fix up there on 106? I have no idea. Apparently going through a grant. For somebody to have $5 million, somebody in this room could have $5 million. So this guy's a developer. When you tell him to put up a bond, how much is the bond, and all this stuff. I get it. I've been down this road. I've been in the construction business 42 years. I've been to many meetings where buildings were $1 billion. I went to Harvard, and I signed a PLA with Harvard to build all union. He's going to build that as skimpy as he can, and you taxpayers, us taxpayers, he's going to get every penny he can. Who cares? If there was a problem with the street over there, you should have handled it a long time ago and did some more about it.
Speak if you want.
I just wanted to point out that we had a pretty big to-do about the school budget here, and this tax revenue that we would get from this building is significant and can certainly contribute to those school budgets and other budgets within town in the future. So I just think that's something to consider, like a lot of extra cash coming in from this building.
We funded those budgets without that building long before. It's just another scare tactic.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think I have to comment on this because the town has an opportunity in this particular site to...
On a point of information, he has no right to speak. He's a lawyer. He only handles legal issues. He has no right to speak.
I'm speaking about the TIF agreement, sir. I helped negotiate the TIF. I negotiated the TIF agreement on behalf of the town with the town administrator.
If you're going to speak, please come to the microphone.
I'm sorry, what is his problem? All right. Thank you.
Excuse me, can I ask a question? David, could you explain the TIF agreement, please? Could you explain the TIF agreement, please?
I'm trying to do that. When the town had the application in for grant to fix this terrible intersection, and I think you know, I don't drive it anywhere near as much as people who live here, but I've driven it a lot. And it is a terrible intersection. The grant was denied. Why, we don't know, but it was. We have a developer that wants to put in a property that's going to bring in tremendous amount of taxes once it's opened. Tremendous amount. And as other people have said, there are alternative developments that would not be as lucrative to the town. So we had to figure out a way to do this. We talked about other creative ideas, but there's nothing worked. The TIF agreement was a way that we could get the road work done in advance of the opening of that building, solve the problem for everybody in the town, because this roadway would need traffic lights and all that, which is a great expense. Road widening, which is a great expense. We got an agreement where we're going to pay 50% of the total cost. We're not going to actually pay it. We're just going to give him a credit for he's paying it. And we're going to give him a credit over 5 years to 7 years maximum. And at the end of that, the tax rate's going to, on that building, is going to bring in tremendous revenues. It's going to bring in partial revenues even though in the first 5 or 7 years. It's a very creative way. You ought to be happy that your selectman and your town moderator, your town administrator, have the wherewithal to find a way to do something that was otherwise shut down by the lack of a grant.
Sir, any further discussion? Hearing none, we're going to move forward. Oh, okay. Is this new information?
Absolutely. 2 points of clarification needed. It was mentioned earlier that houses could go there. We were told that it did not perk for residential. Does anybody have information to that, to get clarity there? That's my first one.
You want me to answer that? Sure.
I
So currently, the soils there are not very good. But I can tell you that the developer right now is spending about $1 million bringing in more soil because it's so poor. So if he can do it, somebody else can do it. If you want to get it to perk, you just spend the money, somebody will get it done.
Okay. And then the second question I had, was the perking and the grant. Is there any possibility that we could resubmit the grant? Was it a formatting issue? Do you need volunteers to resubmit the grant? I mean, is there a way to figure out why the grant was denied? It just kind of seems weird that we don't have any root cause analysis on why the grant was not approved, and could we resubmit it?
So every year the state receives more grant requests than it can fund. Last year we received about $250 million in requests, and it funded $68 million. Obviously, we didn't get it. It was disappointing, but those things are going to happen. Part of the challenge that we have as West Bridgewater is that we don't have a full engineering department. Most other communities do. For example, Brockton received $2.6 million as part of their grant to redo some of their work. But they have an engineering department on staff. So one of the items that Mass DOT always looks for is, how far along are you in the engineering and design phase? But that is going to cost $500,000 to $750,000. So we don't have $500,000 to $750,000, hire an engineer, do all the work, and still get turned down. So to answer your question, could we do that and resubmit for next year's cycle? Yes. But I really mean this. and I will speak to this if you would like more information on it. I really care about this town and try to do the right thing. In good faith, I could not come to you requesting $750,000 for design and engineering fees on a hope that we might get approved next year when they still only have 25 cents on the dollar to give out. So I thought this was the next best course of action.
Thank you.
Steve Mondo, 20 Scotland Street. I hope you get the developer to do a better job on Lincoln and 106 than they did on Elm Street. 'Cause that road's too narrow for the truck traffic that's on it. And everything's going to perk, no matter what. Scotland Street perked, and you know that was a swamp. And you should make sure right now that any trucks that come out of his development have to take a left and go back to his Super Duray intersection on 106 so that you're not killing Scotland Street, South Elm, and the rest of Lincoln Street.
So, I think I have good news for you on all those fronts. First, he didn't do the work in Bridgewater. That was a Mass Works grant. The state did that. So
He said Bridgewater did it.
But my point being is that he, we're going to hold him to the standards that we have through our planning board as to what we expect from our roads. The second thing is that he has already verbally agreed that his vehicles would take a left on Lincoln Street and down to the set of lights. And quite frankly, that's exactly why we're doing the project, and he wants to do the project this way so he can add the additional turn lane. And I can tell you in conversations with the planning board that that'll be one of the stipulations as part of the site plan review. He's already agreed to it. We don't have to fight, but that's what he's willing to do. Look, if I may, I'm in agreement with just about everybody here on two things, I think. One, I would rather not see the land get developed. If I could wave a magic wand, that's what I would choose. It is 74 acres on Route 24 with immediate highway access in an area the land is continuously disappearing and escalating in price beyond belief on a daily basis. It will be developed. It will be. You have three options. It could be residential because a 40B complex can go there even though it's zoned industrial. Nobody is buying 74 acres to put 5 apartments. All right? It's going to be hundreds, if not more. Or it could be commercial. And you, as a town body, in 2007, zoned it for commercial to put in a Mansfield Crossing type complex. They were doing 0 construction work on that road. Imagine that road with 5, 6, 7 retailers, plus restaurants, plus whatever else they were going to bring there, and there was going to be no additional work on any of that infrastructure. Or you can go industrial, which is what this gentleman is, which brings in the most amount of revenue with the least amount of services that are used. Now, I philosophically 100% agree with Neil. I do not come here supporting a TIF agreement because somebody wants to come to town. If Amazon called me tomorrow and said, I'm buying this piece of property, I'm great, you want me, write me a TIF, my answer will be no. The only reason that we're doing this is because we're getting value out of it. We don't have the money or the resources to fix a problem. So if he's going to go there, which he can do, let's make him pay something for it. We're getting $2.5 million out of it, plus we're fixing a problem. That's why I think it's a good deal for the town.
Is there any new information?
Yes. Ruth Beauchamp, 17 Lincoln Street. I just want to know when this project takes place, how many trucks are going to go up and down Lincoln Street? Do you know? Like 100 a day or 200 a day?
Are you talking about during construction phase or are you
Yes.
talking post-construction?
Even both times. Lots, right?
I mean, there's got to be construction traffic, so I honestly just don't have an answer for you. I will say that the idea of post-construction is that it would be a warehouse distribution site. So, again, we don't know, but let's assume it's an Amazon. You know, Amazon uses all those Sprinter-type vans. So, you know, you're going to be talking 100, 200, maybe 250 trucks per day. But again, they should be using Lincoln Street to Route 106. And keep in mind that as part of the project is that when they come off 24, they own a right-of-way access point right after the Shell gas station. So they will not be traveling to the set of lights. They actually get to take an immediate right-hand turn, so it'll alleviate some pressure at the Lincoln Crescent Street intersection that's only going to be used on their way out.
I also had another question about traffic lights. So how many traffic lights will there be on 106?
I assume you mean the duration of Route 106 in West Bridgewater?
Yeah,
Off the top of my head, I'm thinking 5, but if I'm wrong, I apologize.
Do you think traffic will move fast on 106 now, or will it, like, stop?
So right now, that traffic intersection fails according to Mass DOT standards, and we know that there's backups off the highway and onto the highway. I don't see it getting worse. Hopefully it gets better. But we also know the other part to that is that there are too many accidents where people are getting injured and hurt trying to take a left onto Crescent Street or from Crescent Street. You know what happens. People sit there, they try and do the right thing, nobody lets them through, they get impatient, they dart, and accidents happen. This here should hopefully be able to minimize the impact of the accidents.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to, on her note, construction, they have so long to build it. It might be a 6-month project. When they do the dirt, the concrete, and the steel, then the truck traffic goes away. Then you would have small vendors going in there. And second of all, I just want to make a clear point. I'm not against the project because we already approved of it. I'm against that down there. If he's in the TIF, if he was saying he was going to create 1,000 jobs to go into that building that we knew were going in there, which we don't even know what's going in there, I would not even be, I'd be speaking in favor of it. We don't even, he's getting the best of both worlds. And how you have to sell it, Dave, that's your job. The selectmen voted for it, they believe in it, the finance committee. I just don't think we should be giving them nothing. Because I've seen developers, I've been in front of developers with $1 billion, multi-billion dollars, and they'd give anything they wanted to the city to get their project through. You don't want to give the town of West Bridgewater nothing. Even though we're going to get something out of it, something's better than nothing, but we shouldn't be giving them a tip.
So, hearing no other discussion, we're going to move forward with the vote. Can the talliers please come up? Okay, guys, you know the drill. So remember, what you want to vote as goes in the box. What you're not going to vote as goes in the bag. Okay? You guys can all come up now.
I lost my blue card.
This is a majority vote. The yes means you're for it, the no means you're against it.
Oh, there it is.
She's a type 1 diabetic. Oh, no, and I thought she might have been having to eat. She always brings tablets, no. I mean, I'm going to leave right now. I didn't know she had one last one. But if this passes, the next one. Fingers crossed. A lot of people working hard. Dave is very passionate. Well, he used to run a thing. Well, you know, Neil's so pro-union, he just hates to big people. On his terms, he wants it. Good jobs he's talking about. Well, every year he's well, he did run for selectman and he lost.
Okay, everyone, please take your seats. The motion passes 68 to 28. Article 28. Selectman Anderson.
Move to see if the town will vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 82, Sections 21 to 23, and Section 32A, to approve the Lincoln Crescent Street roadway improvement plan, which is on file with the town clerk, the road improvement plan, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to make any takings or easements necessary to implement said road improvement project, whether temporary or permanent, and to take other such actions as may be necessary to complete said road improvement project.
Thank you. Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, this is so that we can implement the road improvement plan that's on file, and this is so we can take the little bit of space down on the sides for easements for the improvements and sidewalk.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Ruth Beauchamp, 17 Lincoln Street. So when this goes through, are you going to take part of my land too?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Do you have to, are you going to have to widen Lincoln Street to take care of the trucks that are going down? And if you do that, you're probably going to have to take part of our land, correct?
What number did you say you were?
17?
There should be minimal takings on Lincoln Street. That road, Jim is no longer here, but in speaking to the engineer earlier, that's a 50-foot road layout. And again, the reason we have the article written is that we can't identify every single easement and taking until we do survey work. But again, we don't have a surveying crew, so the developer's going to have to do that. And then we'll review it for accuracy. But the intent is, at least on Lincoln Street, I don't want to say nothing will happen because I don't know, but there should be really, really minimal. All we're really doing is the roadway, is the sidewalk going up Lincoln, and then where Mr. Dempsey's property is, there'll be more extensive work. And I know, but Mr. Dempsey's been in contact with the developer, so I think he has a good feel for what's going on there. But further down, there should be minimal takings on Lincoln.
So if you do take some of my land, just in case, will my tax bill go down?
That's out of scope.
It's what?
Out of scope.
What does that mean?
Let me do this. I can't speak to the tax bill, but I can just, I'll just let you know for 30 seconds how the process works. So if any part of your property is identified as needing an easement or a taking, then when we hire an appraisal company, the appraisal company will assess the valuation of that, and then once that valuation is determined, we will then issue you a check at that point for what that is. If it is acceptable to you, obviously you'll take it, cash it, and hopefully enjoy it. If it is unacceptable to you, you have recourse. You can file whatever appeals you want. The road work continues. It doesn't thwart the road process.
Right.
But if you want to appeal it, you have that ability. It's America. It's A-okay. But that would be the process. But after that, in reference to taxes, I can't say for sure. And again, it would be so minimal, I couldn't see it having an impact. But I'm purely, that's not my level of expertise.
Okay, thank you.
Howard Dempsey, 470 West Center Street. I guess I'm going to be totally impacted by this, and I'm quite disturbed about this, taking as much as they want and as much as they can use, whether it's on a permanent basis or a temporary basis, because it deals with my property and my business. I just want to make another thing perfectly clear. There's no way that trucks are going to come out of Elm Street and Bridgewater and go to 104. They all come up Lincoln Street and try to get out onto 106 that way for whatever reason. So that is a fallacy. And as far as the developer on that other side having agreed to have all his trucks go out onto 106 at the set of lights, that's a joke. It's not going to happen.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Article 29.
Move to see if the town will vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2, to amend Article 58 of the town's general bylaws, revolving funds, table of funds, to establish a new revolving fund entitled Board of Selectmen Capital Infrastructure and Roadway Improvement Fund, and include a new line item for the Board of Selectmen Capital Infrastructure and Roadway Improvement Fund on said table and within said Article 58 as set forth in the warrant.
Thank you. Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Okay, just very quickly, in case anyone has any questions, there is a chart within the handbook that explains this is a vehicle for which funds will be deposited from the developer and then used to disperse for the expenses as explained within the handbook. Provides transparency as to what we're receiving and what those funds are being spent on.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Jamie Pope, 140 Scotland Street. Under fees, charges, or other receipts credited to fund, you state fees paid by developer, comma, grants, comma, gifts, comma, donations, comma, impact fees. Fees paid by developer and impact fees seem pretty self-explanatory to me. My questions revolve around grants. Are these grants specific to capital infrastructure and roadway grants? Or are these grants any grants that the town receives? That's the first question. The second question is about gifts and donations. Are those, again, gifts and donations specific to capital infrastructure and roadway improvement fund, like earmarked for those? Or are they just any gifts and donations received by the town that can then go into this fund? If those grants, gifts, and donations are not specific to capital infrastructure and roadway improvements, where do those grants, gifts, and donations now go to, i.e. the general fund? And that would be maybe 2-3 questions. I lost count.
No, that's okay. So yes, the way this is written, we have lots of revolving accounts. We have 50, 60 revolving accounts in town. For example, school choice is a revolving account. So there's restrictions on how you can accept the money and how you can spend it. This chart illustrates that. So you can see on the left-hand side, it derives the purpose, which is just capital infrastructure and roadway. So therefore, it is only limited to that for all of those reasons that you just stipulated to. Any current grants, donations would go into the general fund, unless we brought it to town meeting. There's some other little provisions, but none of those could go into this fund for, say, I don't know, some other gift.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Article 30, Hugh Hurley.
Hugh Hurley, Howard Street, Chairman of the Planning Board. Move that the town vote to accept, in accordance with Chapter 82, Section 22 through 24 of the Massachusetts General Laws, BC Way, Elm Terrace, Meadow Spring Drive, Copper Beach Circle, Oakwood Lane, Sycamore Lane as townways as shown on plans approved by the Planning Board, filed with the town clerk, and recorded in the Registry of Deeds.
Thank you. Is there a second? Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommended unanimously, 6-0, with 1 abstention.
Board of Selectmen?
Recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. The Planning Board held a public hearing on March 24th, 2021 to vote on these, and we recommended with a unanimous of the 4 members present to accept the streets that I had already spoke to. What this will do is most streets in town are public ways. When a road is developed, eventually it becomes a public way, and what we're doing, that's what all of these roads are. They were subdivision roads, they were laid out, they were constructed, everything has been done the way they should be, and now the final step is the acceptance at the annual town meeting, which will make them a public road.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I really should have sat closer to the microphone. Jamie Pope, 140 Scotland Street. In recent history, we approved a road as a town road that had a shared septic that ran under the road. So my question is, where we hear all of these comments about roads and sidewalks, et cetera, being so expensive, do any of the roads listed here have any common septic running underneath them that would have to be potentially torn up in the future, and then the town taxpayers would have to pay to replace the road?
No, there are none of these.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. I'm going to now ask Town Administrator David Gagney to provide some quick remarks before we conclude this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I asked him if I could just address the audience for one quick moment. I just want to say a thank you to everybody in this room. This has been a really tough year. As businesses suffered in this town, they were closed. We had employees in this town. I see many of you in the room. Obviously, Jamie's speaking, but Bob, Tim, John, Chris, Kathy, the Finance Committee, all your boards and committees, they all had to figure out how to still hold their public hearings, get permits done. It wasn't easy. As residents, you suffered because our buildings weren't always necessarily open. And I know there was a change for all of you as well. And I know I heard some complaints, but overall, I just wanted to say thank you because everybody in this town really pulled together. Hopefully it looks like now with Baker's announcement, the restrictions are being limited. We can start to really get back to our normal life. But since many of you I interact with, I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you. Under a trying year, this town really came together and showed how great it is. So I just wanted to say thank you.
With no other business on the agenda, it is 9:20, and I'm going to conclude the annual town meeting.